we are end of our presentations, and I'm really happy. I don't know, and it's really diverse. We started with Dario, who gave us a really example of how United Nations Economic Commission for Europe is dealing with the raw material classification. And I really enjoyed the 20 years of work. So I've been following, and I should admit I am struggling. So it's really complicated for someone who's not in the area for me. And I'm really happy to see that Europe is now trialing, and we will advance in Europe. And hopefully in the next stage, as a UN tool, we will bring to Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So this is our perspective of how the classification of raw materials are important. And then Azura gave us how gender equality and the collaboration and local level partnerships are important. So Dario's example from UN level, and coming to Azura is working really on the field with the students, with the young women, and enabling them. So we had top and bottom up approaches, which were really useful. And I'm also very grateful for Peter giving us the importance of value chain. So we do know today, China, Russia, all the problems we're aware how strategically Peter's division and team are approaching to create a reliable alliance. And then we switched to Cecile, how the investment is important. So we can make partnerships, but at the end, if the countries are not supporting and we don't have governmental backup or private sector backup, so we have really large and rich, for me, panel. And I think it's now time to ask your questions. So if you have any specific questions for them, you want to more know, or if you want to discuss or challenge maybe the approach, will be as well how you see the tool and how you see the investments, are they enough or not enough? So it's your turn. I hope you have some questions, and we have microphone can be turned around. So you've been listening for an hour or long. I think it will be good to get you back with us and get your real feedback for all of us. And also from my point of view, how can I bring this to other part of the world, and can we see this? Do we have any question? Please. And you can address directly. You can address.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Karen Hanghøj. I'm with the British Geological Survey. Thank you for some really, really interesting presentations. And I think there's probably at least a couple of you who are going to guess what I'm going to ask, because I was wondering if we could chat a little bit about the potential for international centers of excellence in the UNECE context, and quite specifically how we might think about funding those and supporting those. One of the reasons it's a very relevant question here today, I think, is that the project that we're just kicking off with the Geological Service for Europe has as one of its outcomes that it will establish one of these international centers of excellence. And I think it's a very powerful tool of collaboration. And so any thoughts or comments on how we can help each other move that forward? And I don't know who, someone's actually shaking his head. I'm not going to say anything else. Thank you.
Indeed, in the framework of the project that we are working on with EGS and with the support of the European Commission, there is a scope to establish an international center of excellence in Europe. It would be the first one for the diffusion and implementation of the United Nations framework classification and the development of the United Nations resource management system, which is the implementation tool of the classification tool. And that's a start. And we hope it will reverberate around Europe initially, the larger sense of Europe, of course. And but as well, the idea would be to do more elsewhere as well. For that, as you correctly said, we need financial resources. I think we welcome the support of the European Commission. We hope for continued support from the European Commission in the future. It's great to have, as Peter said, they're very fun. So we might be building a fan club, and we welcome everybody to join the club and then support the diffusion of those. I think in our experience, we have different sets, networks of international centers of excellence. We have, for example, in high performance buildings, We have, for example, resource management. We're working as well in the sphere of resource management, and I think it needs to be well calibrated in the sense of what these international centers of excellence do. And the resources that are given to do those tasks. I think first and foremost, when it comes to this area, I think is the diffusion and the awareness of what we'll be discussing today here, and as well of methodologies and tools to create the potential and to create the conditions for the investment and to flow into that area. I come from 30 years of financial services experience, and I've looked on many projects in this space, and Cecile, I mean, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, in your analysis, that's exactly, there is a difficulty in financing those projects, and they're mostly the times they are financed privately, which means they're not following the best practices available to us. And I think that is a huge challenge for us to bring those public investments, and public, when I mean not only public resources, should be private resources, but with a public approach. Peter, I don't know if you want to add something. No, it's all right. And thank you, Karen, for the. Please.
Thank you very much. Concerning the centers of excellences, there is a very nice dynamic on the African continent. Maybe not on geology, but in many scientific fields, and could be done also for geology. And the funds go through the World Bank projects. So there are many now on the African continent. They are doing a very high-level research, scientific research, good publications. And maybe it could be an opportunity to work maybe together between the two organizations on Center of Excellence dedicated to georesources management and to the application of the African mining vision. Thank you.
Any comments, Cecil?
Can I? Zdeněk Venera, Czech Geological Survey. I'd like to ask about the directive on critical raw materials that is being under preparation. And if you, in your deliberations, if you went that far about creating a European Commission fund to support financially exploration, seismic, deep drilling, because that's what it's, in many European countries, that's what it's needed. Some countries, they don't need it. But in others, it's left just on the decisions of multinational mining companies, and it would be really a great help if there's such a tool from the European Commission.
Peter? I think it's for Peter.
Yeah, I'm more comfortable with that one. The jargon we're using is European Critical Raw Materials Act, which says everything and nothing, really. We're actually preparing a proposal for a regulation on securing the supply of critical raw materials. And we will be looking at it from a value chain approach, starting from exploration, right? Exploration, exploitation, the various stages of processing, the recovery and the recycling. It will have a very strong circular economy dimension, because as we heard one of the speakers, Philippe Varin, saying, you can't convince anybody to open a mine if you're throwing everything away that's already a used product, okay? So these things go together. We will be looking at the investment gap. We're taking a look at what Philippe Varin has put in his report to the French government and the actions that France and Germany and other member states are already taking, because we see a general realization that 2 decades of just leaving this to the market have just led to a deterioration in our overall dependency on single points of supply, right? China, in other words, but not only China. So there is a strategic awareness, and I've said it's at the top levels of government across Europe, that we need to act, and we need to act now. Who knows what's going to happen in China, Taiwan in the next few years. It's a very worrying geopolitical situation. Anyway, we will be looking at the investment side. I can't be more specific, but you did hear maybe the President of the Commission announcing her belief that we're going to need some kind of a sovereignty fund in the future to address a wide range of issues, okay? What I would say to you as national and European Geological Surveys, you have an opportunity to tell us what you think the regulation should do. There is a public consultation out there at the moment, running till the 25th of November. My only plea is be specific, be concrete, and don't leave it till the last minute. The earlier the better. Position papers, informal thoughts. We're happy to have conversations. We're doing our analysis right now.
Teresa Poncelian from Portugal. So coming back to the centers of excellence and knowing that we as EuroGeoSurveys, but also as European Energy Research Alliance, we are trying to understand what Europe needs as centers of excellence, how to, and bringing several proposals, but taking into account that this issue of how to manage resources, either geological resources, renewable resources, anthropogenic resources, and the circular economy. Why don't we, and I would like to know your opinion, make a network of these networks, UNEC, EGS, the European Energy Research Alliance, and try to understand how to create this so urgent kind of tool that will bring to the governments, to the stakeholders, to industry, a common way, an harmonized way to evaluate our projects. So,
I'll try to answer your question, which is a fundamental question when you start a network. I think, what is a network? A network is a sum of points that at the beginning it's in the building, and then once you reach a certain mass, it has what is called the network effect, which is exponential growth. I think I agree with you in the sense that there are, as we have heard as well in Africa, there are many networks, each one of them specialized, and I think we need to make those contacts between these different networks, as we have seen, is a transversal issue. It works, in my experience, it works very well and very fast and much faster at the local level, because as well, every country is different, especially when we come to mineral resources. The endowment, the industrial policies, the industrial fabric of each country is different. Think only about the European Union, but think about my region, which is even widespread in terms of how the single countries are endowed with natural resources and where are they specialized in terms of industry and which raw materials they need. There is, critical raw material is a large definition, but according to who you speak to, it's a different sort of materials. So I think you're right, there needs to be a coordination at the global level, and that is the role that we have as organizations to make sure that our networks speak between each other, and this is the work that we're doing with the European Commission, for example, but as well the work we're doing with UNDP and UNEP within the galaxy of the United Nations organizations. But I think the real work to have an impact needs to be at the local level. So my recommendation, my suggestion is at the local level, you should reach out to the other networks and talk about the needs of locally, whether it's a region level, whether it's your country level, and that is where I think it should, and then it's left to the initiative of the single centers. So that's, the outreach has to happen at every level to have an impact. We can only have an impact in terms of project management at the top level. If you want to have an impact on concrete results, on bringing actually forward these things, it has to be at local level.
Yeah, I have a question for Peter. We are now building the Geological Service for Europe, and you are also talking about Raw Materials Act. From an experience in my country, in the Netherlands, makes a lot of sound. It is that these laws or legislation are always underpinned by data and information. And data and information is always hard work, considered sometimes boring to politicians. But I think they underpin everything we do, and not only the surveys, but also if you want to reach your goal, it's based on these data streams. So how do you, from the past, we always have been funded for European work together out of the DG research community, and with this legislation coming, do you envision that from DG Grow or from DG Energy, you will support those information streams directly, or do you actually never thought about it? Or I was just wondering how you see the basis underneath this act.
The basis of this act is going to be about knowledge and data, because we're going to start from the point of defining what things we want to worry about and act upon. Okay, so we'll be drawing on all the work that we do already for a number of years, and Milan and colleagues are here on the criticality assessment, which is based on data. It's based on expert advice. It's based on talking to companies, and if one says black and another says white, you have to work out what the reasonable kind of factual situation is. We're going to be working to improve market monitoring and stress testing. Now, as far as your specific question about funding streams for EGS, that's, again, one of the things you can address in your comments, because you might want to say, I can't remember who was saying it to me, maybe it was Emil, is it really appropriate that the only stream is coming from the research and innovation budget if we are actually contributing much more centrally to the identification of the resources to be there for Europe's future security of supply? It's in your hands, okay? We're in listening mode at the moment. And if there's more that we need to do on the exploration side or on the data management side, let us know. Okay?
Okay. Thank you. I also have a question for Peter. I'm the director of the Danish and Geological Survey, and you said that you are now in the phase where you create partnership globally with other countries. And how can we, as a society in EGS, help you to get that overview of where to make these cooperations?
Good. So I can try to answer this one. No, definitely. I think we are already, what is happening, at least for Africa. I know that colleagues, because we work with this partnership also at local level, I think Dario made the point too, because then this partnership is really on a country basis. And I know, for example, in Namibia, the colleagues in delegation were very much in touch with BGRM and other geological survey. So this is happening like this, I think, locally. If we want to do it in a more structured way, I think I don't see anything like this. I would say a little bit what Peter has said. I mean, this could be a good idea also to put in the context of the consultation. I mean, this strategic partnership, you know, there's this political urgency, so we are trying to work together inside the Commission, cooperate, make something with sort of very high-level political in a fast time, so we are learning by doing, so to say. I mean, from our side, we'll be more than happy to get a more structured cooperation with you, especially when you're talking about Africa, but also in other countries, to get your view, to get your sense of it, because of course it will improve the sort of content of what we're doing, our knowledge, and where we should put our focus. So fully open. If Peter doesn't contradict myself, I would say this is something which is very important, but both at local level, again, because we need to go down to detail at local level, but maybe more strategically also to select this important country.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Fred Walmer. I am the predecessor of Ralf Schwarzel. Yesterday I said the OED should be stand back and not give advice, but maybe I can make an exception. During the discussion I heard very, very little. Of course, we have to do everything which we are doing, the geological surveys, better and better and better. So centers of excellence, of course, are a way to do this. But I have very little heard about really revolutionary new thinking of really going into totally new areas. And I want to make a suggestion. We are in an energy crisis, and Jacques Vallée yesterday talked about geothermal. We have to do this geothermal work better and better. but I have heard very little, if nothing, about hydrogen. And there is natural hydrogen. But we know very little about it. So why not pooling all the knowledge which is there in geological surveys, try where are the favorable areas of natural hydrogen? In the beginning of the year, there was in London a conference about natural hydrogen, and a geologist from Total, and I assume he knows what he is talking about, he says this is a field, future field. And so I think this is a task of EuroGeoSurveys and geological surveys to try to find areas like subduction zones or so where you can find natural hydrogen. This is one screw to maybe solve or make a contribution to our energy crisis we have right now. Thank you.
Then Peter, I leave you the floor immediately. I thank you for the question. We didn't mention hydrogen because there is so much on the table that we talked about. But don't worry, it's not a forgotten item. Actually, we in the UNEC we have a task force on hydrogen, to which the experts of the resource management team, which is the experts that we've been talking about, participate too. And one of our first tasks is to go and define hydrogen. You know that there is blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, turquoise hydrogen, pink hydrogen. There are so many hydrogen all around the world. And I think we need to understand what is hydrogen and how you classify. So that is a fundamental work that we're doing. I welcome your point in looking at the support of the geosurvey services in looking for natural hydrogen. I think we will give this input to the group of experts working on it, but I can tell you there is a lot of work going on on hydrogen as we speak, and as Peter will probably as well complement my answer. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dario. When you introduced me, you said correctly, I'm head of unit for energy-intensive industries and raw materials. But that's only because they haven't updated the unit's name to reflect the reality, which is that for 18 months we're also and hydrogen, right? So DG Energy is responsible for energy policy in relation to hydrogen and for the regulatory framework. But my part of DG Grow is actually managing the deployment side, the industrialization aspects and the value chain aspects of hydrogen. We're leading the work on the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance. We're accompanying the Joint Research Centre and DG Competition on the important projects of common European interest. We've collected the investment pipeline, and we're doing work on standards. So, yeah. Now, the question specifically there is a very relevant and pertinent one. Since 2020, we have added hydrogen into our criticality assessment because we know that today most of the hydrogen is steam methane reforming from natural gas, but we need to track how critical hydrogen becomes as the world looks to that as one of its solutions in getting out of fossil fuel dependency. And the different types of hydrogen is relevant in that context. Yes, we are aware of so-called white hydrogen, and we are aware of some projects, but I do agree with you. I think it is an underexplored aspect of how we can address the hydrogen deficit. Our strategy is primarily to move towards renewable hydrogen from solar, wind, and so forth. But we do understand that to get hydrogen to scale and to get the economics working, we're going to have to start somewhere. Okay, so that's why we're also looking at the role of hydrogen from nuclear, the role of hydrogen from the classic methods, but combined with carbon capture and storage. And why not? And if the geological surveys can give us more evidence base on the potential for Europe to develop more autonomy on that front, by all means, bring it on. Thank you.